Okay, great.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our video for the International Sommelier Association that is going to cover Folktale Wineries in the United States today. And with us, we have today Eddie Morris, who will talk to us about Folktale Wineries, their own wines, as well as the wines that are made by other companies that fall under their group. So without further ado, I'll leave it to Eddie, and then we'll talk. I'll have a couple of questions. We'll taste a couple of wines and share
Sure.
our impressions, and hope you will enjoy them. Eddie, over to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me, and thanks for everybody for taking the time and the interest in our brands. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen so I can kind of walk through the presentation that I put together for you guys. Give me just 1 second. Let's disable part. Oh, it looks like my screen sharing ability has been disabled, Marco.
Oh,
You might have to tweak something on your end.
do I have to start again?
Oh no, if that's the case, then I can just talk. It's fine.
I haven't disabled anything, I think.
Oh, here we go. It's working now.
Yeah.
All right.
Excellent.
You got
Fantastic.
that?
Yeah.
Right. So the winery itself is Folktale Winery, and it is a brick and mortar facility. You're looking at a picture of part of the property right here. Folktale Wine Group is the kind of greater umbrella company that is home to all of the different brands, and specifically for our purposes, the Aviary, which is a Napa Valley project, and then Golden, which is another Monterey County project. This is actually our vineyard house right here. So this is the residence that we're able to stay in, fortunately enough, whenever we do come to visit California. As Marco knows, I'm based here in Florida, so kind of the Sunshine State to the Golden State. A little different kind of weather here, so not as many grapes growing. But this is our home. It's a beautiful place. This is a front shot of the winery here, and kind of a snapshot of what the portfolio looks like. And again, these are kind of collaboration brands. We have ownership in all of them and in some of the vineyard properties themselves. Then we consult in the winemaking across everything. And then, of course, Le Mistral, Folktale, Ventana, these are all wines that we make here at Folktale and source from vineyards throughout the greater Monterey County AVA, but most specifically Arroyo Seco, which is actually a wonderful microclimate. We're able to source, of course, the king and the queen of Monterey County, which is largely, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, respectively, but also a bevy of Rhone varietals from, Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre, Cinsault, Carignan to Gewürztraminer, Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc. It's a cooler climate, so the expression of fruit you get here tends to be a bit more phenolically developed. There's a bit more acid in our wines that are coming out of Monterey, which is a personal preference of mine. I think that makes for really good food wines. And with that, Marco, if you want to go ahead and pour a little bit of the Chardonnay maybe to start out.
Okay.
I'm going to taste that as we go along. That's going to be the first one that we really touch on.
Done that just before we started. I took the bottle out of the fridge about 20 minutes ago. I don't want to have it too cold. So this is the 100% Chardonnay from Monterey County. There was a slight misunderstanding on my part. Maybe I should say a word about that, because it says obviously Monterey County, so we're talking about the coast, but then in the label it says Folktale Winery Napa, California. So, and then I got an email, I think, from one of your colleagues saying that obviously the two collaborate together. So the wine is from Monterey, but sometimes it is bottled.
It is
for practical reasons in Napa.
Yeah. So the plan of this wine was always to make it basically a more scalable concept, and the ultimate goal of that, well, I wouldn't say goal, but kind of the inevitability was that we would probably move away from a specific Monterey County appellation. Now, what you're tasting is still Monterey County fruit in our vineyards, in fact, but we're making this wine at our Napa facility just because of the sheer quantity. This was one of the larger production. So in this vintage, which you should be drinking the 2019, we made roughly around 7,500 cases, which for our purposes. Yeah, at Folktale, I mean, that's a lot of wine. I mean, that would be, almost about half of our production. and we make probably around 25 different SKUs just at Folktale alone. So that would just eat up so much of our production capacity that we decided we needed to move it away. Now, in future vintages, we will actually be moving to a California appellation. Still a lot of Monterey fruit that's going to be going into the Chardonnay, but ultimately that's kind of where we had planned to go, just because there's a threshold to how much fruit we can access in Monterey, or even utilizing our own vineyards, which we have a decent amount of, but not only so much. It's expensive to own land in California, as I'm sure everybody knows.
I can imagine. Yeah. So here, this is a very nice plump wine. It's round. I think it's extremely well balanced, and it's got a very refreshing sapidity, minerality, and then it's an acidity, which now you get more and more in California, but until recently, you didn't. So is that a conscious decision that you've made to move away from the 1990s rich Californian wine towards more acidic? Yeah.
For sure, and I think a part of it too is also the actual terroir, the location. So this part of Arroyo Seco, we're at a relatively high elevation, a few hundred meters above the Salinas and Gavilan range, or valley rather. You've got a limestone base there. There's a healthy amount of minerality in these wines, and total acid. We don't undergo complete malolactic fermentation, so you're not going to get the full-on creaminess and richness that you kind of find to be pretty much the norm for California Chardonnay. As you said, up until now, things are changing quite a bit. So yeah, we are reaching more for a little bit cleaner style, a little bit more kind of citrus stone fruit kind of fruit, rather than just a really heavy mango kind of tongue coating, passion fruit and tropical fruits.
Yeah, tropical, Very nice. Yeah, it's well done. Yep.
So a good point about, and then the barrel regimen for our golden wines, and this is actually the same for the Pinot, it is going to be seeing about a maximum of 6 months in neutral French oak. And we're actually fermenting in stainless steel. So these are not going to be barrel fermented wines. Again, I think it's leaning more towards sort of an acid driven style and very, very expressive of the fruit itself. I think it gives it a little bit cleaner, a little bit bouncier and lively kind of profile. Your alcohol content is always going to be right between 13.5 to 14%. Year to year, you might see a half point tick up, but that's usually right where we land. These vineyards, as of right now, actually are also sustainably farmed vineyards. We are working towards sustainable certification, if not organic certification now, on all of the properties of which we own. And then, of course, the ones that we source from or buy large quantities from, we try to make sure that those partners are sustainably certified or working towards those same ends. So it's an important
sustainable, meaning with very limited use of any synthetic chemicals. That's what you mean, sustainable. Yeah, not fully organic, but almost.
Right. Yeah, and to be like, it's looking at sustainability as a more complete picture of the economics of the production methods. From the people that we hire to the way the fruit is harvested and to the way the vineyards are farmed. So it's really a kind of it's responsibility on a number of different levels.
Right. I think personally, I think that's an excellent approach. I sometimes I'm puzzled by people who are almost ideologically oriented toward the organic as a value in itself, as a kind of a label to put on the wine, whereas it's a lot more than that in the economy and in the balance of the land and the people that work in the land and so on. It's not just a question of how many grams. Yeah.
Sure. From an economic, social perspective, I don't think it's ever been more pertinent as it is right now. I mean, with all the questions of immigration, and that's from the U.S. to the European Union. There's a lot of very politically controversial, obviously, discussions to be had within that ballpark. But it's an important part of. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about an agricultural product. And there has to be people who are willing to go out, and a lot of our fruit is hand harvested. You know what I mean? It requires manpower. So
you have a lot of immigrants working in your vineyards, I suppose.
I mean, historically, yes. Historically, there was in this industry, period. But I mean, that goes for the restaurants as well. I mean, we own a number of restaurants in Carmel, and this is just kind of a part of the labor force scene in the United States. And it doesn't matter if you're in California or New York City, but it's something that. Yeah.
As you said, it's the same in Europe and particularly in the UK, where I'm talking to you from now. It's been a disaster with the limitations of Brexit and so on, there's been fruit that's not been picked. I mean, literally, it's been left to rotten in the field because there was nobody around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it's something that we've seen in this vintage specifically, the 2020 vintage, but then also, or excuse me, 21 vintage, but even more so as you go up to Oregon and Washington, you're seeing a lot of the yields just being left to fall on the ground because there is a massive labor shortage. Whether it's people just don't need to work or they just aren't allowed to work, you know, but it's a combination of different things.
It's both. I'm sure it's both.
Yeah.
So we need more legal and well-organized migration of people who are actually willing to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that should, you know, of course, there's a lot of other things we could discuss. We probably don't have the time for that. So we'll move on. So the wine that you have with you is the Aviary Reserve, which is our Napa Valley 100% Napa Valley appellated Cabernet Sauvignon. And I'm trying to see, is that you have the 2018 in hand?
I have the 2018 Reserve. Yeah. I tried the other one the other day, which was quite good, and then I tried this one here, which is actually better. I mean, this is a full, but well, you talk about it, but this is a pretty exceptional 100% cab from California.
Yeah. So the Aviary label, this was the name comes from really was my boss, the founder of our company, Gregory An, who originally a Californian. He's a Korean gentleman who was born in Los Angeles. He traveled the country working for larger wine conglomerates over the years. You know, supplier companies, but, you know, brand ownership companies, Seagram's and Constellation Brands, things like that. When we started this portfolio almost 10 years ago now, God, it's been a while. We always wanted, I think, like many other vintners and wine industry folk, you know, kind of dreamed of having the classic Napa Valley Cabernet brand. So we started in 2009, I believe, was our first vintage. I've been there for 8 years now, but we managed to get our hands on a lot of really inexpensive bulk fruit that after the recession was basically out there on the open market, willing to be, you know, grabbed at a discount. So we were able to create a red blend from that, which it contained almost every varietal under the sun that you'd find in California that's red. It was Zinfandel, Cab Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Malbec, Petit Verdot. It was a little bit of everything, but it was an extraordinary value. It was 100% Napa Valley appellated wine that was under $15 a bottle wholesale. You know, so that was like our great feat and kind of what brought a lot of value to our customers here in the U.S. Well, as time has gone on, obviously prices have gone back up. So we've had to kind of reevaluate and change this portfolio a bit. So what we've done is what you see here on the left is our California tier. So that's a combination of appellations, primarily North Coast, so Sonoma, Napa Valley, but there's also some Mendocinos, some Lodi that goes into the reds, some Paso. But the Reserve is still the 100% Napa Valley cab that we've always wanted to have available. We continue to make. So this actually, you have the 2018. It actually does have a little bit of Merlot, just under 10% Merlot.
Okay.
So yeah, we can have legally up to within 15% non-varietal on the label. I like the Merlot. I think it actually kind of fleshes it out a little bit. It gives it a little bit more balance. As a younger wine, these wines tend to be pretty rich, fruit forward for sure. The oak contact is not, I would say, as overt as many other cab producers in Napa Valley can be. It's a total of 14 months and about a 50-50 split of French and American oak. 50% of that is new oak. So you are going to get some of those oak tannins, some of that kind of cedar cigar box effects. I think those kind of start to show themselves a little bit more with some age. Yeah. A little bit of bottle time. I personally love those expressions. I really find that that's sort of one of the things that makes Napa Cab what you would want to expect from Napa Cab. But yeah, this as a brand, the Aviary Cabernet Sauvignon is our number one selling wine in the whole portfolio. So it's been massively successful for us here. That style, I think that especially in the US, that very fleshy, soft tannin, kind of rich fruit, dark rich fruit too. You know, this is going to be more of the current kind of blackberry, almost plummy fruit in some cases. People really seem to kind of move towards. So
excellent. Yeah, it is very well balanced. I would say harmonious wine that you have here. Yeah, thank you. That covered. So I had some questions, but you covered. You gave me the answers already.
Yeah.
No, you. Yeah.
And then just to differentiate a little bit here too from the California, the Napa. So any of the California labels will be somewhere from like 5 to 8 months in barrel, whereas the Napa is going to see always about 12 months plus, just to give it that extra age time, a little bit more time in bottle before we release. Although that's becoming harder and harder to do because the demand for the wine is high enough that we find ourselves almost rushing to get wine to market, and it's almost like do we jeopardize the quality and the consistency of what we produce year in, year out by just getting it to market faster? Or do we continue to age? So we'll go 2 or 3 months a year where there's a gap in inventory. We just won't have the wine because we're not, time is time. You can't like speed up the clock or slow it down. It is what it is. So God, that would make our lives a lot easier if we could, right? But
no, we're not there yet with technology. But do you have the same phenomenon like we have in Europe, certainly in Italy, which I know a little bit more about, that the tendency is, with differences and so on, but the tendency is definitely toward people drinking less wine, but better wine. People don't drink as much for health reasons, for whatever, they want to keep their weight under control, but they're willing to spend more for a bottle of wine if the quality justifies that. That's a very marked tendency that we have in Europe. Does that happen in these states?
Yes.
Well?
I think what we're seeing now, I just was reading an industry report this past week, and the trend that they're seeing in this year's sales is particularly an increase in direct consumer sales, because so many more people are buying their wines online now, as opposed to going out to a brick and mortar retail, depending on where you live. Here in Florida, it's not really an issue. But what you're seeing is a massive increase in the $20, $25 and up price point, and a fall off and everything pretty much below that. And I think that's exactly what it is. People are wanting to drink better. Maybe it's a lot of people getting rich in cryptocurrency markets. I don't know. For whatever reason.
But even if you don't spend more overall at the end of the year, but with that much money you have in your wine budget, most people are say, okay, I'm going to drink fewer bottles. I'm going to buy fewer bottles, but I want them to be better than the past. So but
I honestly, I think that's great. From a production standpoint, I'd much rather make less better wine, at a healthy, margin of profit, and not just be scrambling to produce as much as we possibly can just to satisfy a price point. That, I think it's better for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you go organic, everything else being equal, chances are your output is going to be smaller anyway. So you have less juice to work with.
And then I guess it's worth the time, since we've got each other here. I will just kind of skim over these and give you a little bit of kind of the background on the rest of the portfolio. So this is the Folktale label. So this is our namesake label. The winery itself, we purchased in 2015 now. So we've been there just over 5 years. We purchased this property. It was formerly Chateau Julien, which was a 1980s built, winery built after a French chateau. It was dated. It needed quite a bit of updating. So we put a lot of money into kind of fixing it up, making it a full service, not only wine production facility, but also wine tasting room, a full service menu and kitchen. We still do events and things like, COVID kind of slowed that down, but we do weddings and we do concerts and all kinds of fun stuff. Prior to us taking over the property, it had literally been pretty much purposed exclusively for events, because the family and their kids had no interest whatsoever in actually continuing the wine business. So they had outsourced their production years before, and every barrel that was sitting there was really just for decoration. It had been filled with water just to keep it from drying out. So from that point to now, and even years ago, basically by the first full year in, we had maxed out the capacity of the wine production there. So when you go visit us now, you're not looking at barrels full of water, they're barrels full of wine. We take people through and do barrel tastings, and my winemaker will climb 10 racks of barrels to go get you a wine thief of a pet nat that we're working on. It's we're sticking to our guns and making kind of the Pinot Noirs and the Chardonnays really the core of what we do there, and that's really the core of Monterey County in terms of the varietals that thrive. But we're also experimenting with a lot of carbonic maceration. we're actually bottling in Negrette right now. So we're getting into some of these old methods of winemaking that we're just sort of having fun with, and different varietals that you really wouldn't expect to see come out of the Central Coast of California. Some Spanish varietals. We're doing some Verdejos, some Albariños. We're working now with some Cabernet Franc, which is one of my personal favorites, and in different styles too, not just.
It's a difficult one. Huh? It's a harder grape tannins. It's more difficult to work with that.
That wine specifically, we modeled it much more after kind of a Bordeaux style Cabernet Franc as opposed to like a Loire Valley.
Right.
So it is extremely tannic. We actually let it sit in barrel for nearly 2 years before we released the wine, and allowed some oxidation as well. So it turned out beautifully. We don't have a whole lot of it, but the interesting thing about Folktale is that you come visit us there, you can see our entire portfolio, but you come to Folktale and you see 25, 30 wines that you never knew we made, because we just make them in such small quantities, and we really only sell them direct to the consumers that order their wines online, or wine club members, or just come there to dine and try the product. So it's always great for me when I get to come visit the winery, because I've always got something new to try.
I hope to be able to do that, and I'm sure many of our people watching this will be looking forward to that opportunity.
And as I mentioned in that first slide with the picture of the vineyard house, that is something that we make available to the public. So if we have notice, we can book that in advance for
okay. That's good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
I'll put a link in the website when I write this all up. Yeah.
Yep. Alias, this is our oldest brand. The name Alias really was born out of kind of the beginnings of our company. This was the first brand that we created, and the reason for the name, we were all actually still working for other wine producers, and we did not want to lose our day jobs until we had gotten this off the ground. So we called it Alias because nobody was really allowed to know who was behind the winemaking and where the product was coming from. These are the varietals that we currently produce, and this is sort of our entry level, but very varietally correct. Again, focused on sustainable vineyard sources and production techniques. One that's been very successful for us and economical as well. Some of the sparkling wines, this was a label that my boss's daughter, Abby, actually designed for us while she was still attending high school. She was an aspiring art student, and we gave her the freedom to basically come up with a label concept. We had the fruit. We just wanted to figure out like what kind of a package we wanted for it. So all of the artwork for this brand, Days of Youth, was designed by her, which is pretty cool. We put that on the back label.
My wife and I are passionate divers, so I'm looking forward to tasting this particular wine.
Yeah. So
where did she get this name from, the dive?
Yeah, well, we have a lot. I mean, we're right there in Monterey, the marina and the aquarium, the naval base. There's a lot of kind of maritime vibe in the part of California that we're in. But this was just particularly suited to this wine because of the sparkling. So the bubbles with the diver helmet and everything just kind of worked really well. It's interesting for me to get to talk, at kind of consumer events and explain to them the process behind, designing of labels. And, we're not sitting in a corporate boardroom, looking at the latest Nielsen data, trying to figure out what's going to be the most appealing. We're like, well, hey, Abby made these labels for us. This would work great for this one. And hey, it's we're not selling hundreds of thousands of cases of it, but it's a nice wine and people seem to enjoy it. So this is the Rhone that I spoke about. So Les Mistral, probably one of the more storied and interesting histories in the Central Coast of California. The flagship wine that you see in the center is called Joseph's Blend. And the reason for the name was Joseph Phelps was actually the founder of this vineyard and the creator of this brand name. It refers, as you probably know, being the sommelier you are, Les Mistral winds that blow over the Rhone Valley. We have a very similar kind of a suction effect off of Monterey Bay into the Salinas-Gavilan ranges in the valley where a lot of our vineyards are located. So you get an extreme shift in temperatures day to day of around 20 degrees and a pretty strong wind. I wouldn't, say as strong as the ones you see in the Rhone, but it allows for a longer hang time. It allows for more phenolic development in the grapes. These are some of the best wines that we're producing. Our winemaker, David, he spent his early years, he's a young man, he's only about 36 years old, but he started with Fess Parker in Santa Barbara. He worked with Justin in Paso Robles, and at both locations had the opportunity to work with everything from Pinot Noir to Syrah to, Cabernet Franc. It's like something like Justification. So he has experience with all of the varietals, and this has really been his kind of like his pathway to really getting to explore the Rhone and the different things that he can do with these. So in addition to the blend, which is a Grenache Syrah and maybe a little bit of Mourvedre is typically the blending varietal we use. We do Grenache Blanc. We do a rosé of Grenache Blanc, which is actually Grenache Blanc juice passed over Grenache skins for the color. It's a beautiful wine. It's almost like a Ripasso Rhone rosé. And then we do, individual Grenache Syrah, a lot of really good stuff. The wines have been very highly rated and they seem to be very well received. So something I'm very excited about for the future of our winery. Okay. All right. And this, I think I'm gonna skip over some of these because I don't think they're as relevant. These are kind of more lesser known wines that we don't really produce a whole lot of. This is a good snapshot of the range of all of the organic and kind of like nerdier wines, if you will, that we're producing at Folktale. So in this list here from left to right, you'll see that's a Pet Nat. This second one here is a co-ferment Syrah Cabernet Sauvignon. That was a collaboration project with some friends of ours in Australia. So their winemaker actually came to California to collaborate on that vintage together. We have a Folktale Nouveau. This is actually the carbonic Sangiovese, which is what's grown right there at the winery, which is pretty interesting. Some whole cluster Pinot Noir, some orange wine. So as I said, when you come to the winery, you have a lot of really cool things to get to try that you would not really expect to see in
I will need a place to sleep because after tasting all this wine, I won't be able to drive for sure.
Well, that's it. You don't have to. You just have to walk to your home, and that's fine.
That's right. Great. Thank you very much. I had a few questions, but you've covered really everything that I wanted to ask, except one point.
Sure.
I've seen you use this kind of the Diam corks, at least in the ones that you sent to me.
Yeah.
Can you tell us why this choice?
For the composite?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically it's just less chance for the cork tank for TCA. It's as simple as that. We do use real cork for some of our smaller production, higher end selections at under the Folktale label. But even in those, in a lot of cases, we're actually moving away from cork. Never fully synthetic. The composites typically what we kind of lean towards. But that's just something we've kind of done. For a long time. Yeah.
It's something that's getting more and more accepted now, even by more kind of snobbish wine buyers who a few years ago would not have bought a bottle with this, but now they do because it works.
We are. I'll speak to the kind of packaging conversation in general. You'll notice, like with the Golden Chardonnay, we're moving towards a more clear glass look versus the traditional kind of green or brown. And that's, as I think it's kind of this movement of more transparency around the winemaking that you're seeing a lot of in California and other parts of the world. And we're also moving away from traditional. This is I think what they call the leaf brown or leaf green glass.
Leaf green.
Glass has become a real problem in the COVID era because the supply chains have been so backed up. So we've had delays in bottlings just because we cannot procure glass fast enough. It's become a real. So we're having to change mid-vintage. Even we're having to change the style of glass. So we're having retailers asking us, what is going on with your bottling, and what do you want the wine or not? Because we can wait for the glass, but you're not going to get it fast enough. So that and like doing away with foil. That's another thing that we're starting to mess around with. A lot of our wines are waxed. At the winery, we're starting to do away with that, partly because of environmental reasons, second because of labor shortage, and because of the cost. It's nice to have the frills when times are good, but when it's just excess otherwise. You know what I mean? So good question.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for everything. If you can send me a couple of links, maybe that you think I should put, for example, about your accommodation and about your, if you have suppliers in Belgium and the UK, where most of our listeners would be, then I can. People again buy online, Wine Search or Vivino these days. But if you have suggestions about where to go and look for these wines here in Europe, that'd be good. And other than that, so thank you very much. I hope to be able to see you in person in California.
Of course.
And maybe we'll see what the next fair will bring. Do you come to Europe for real fairs? Like the London Wine Fair has a lot of Californians.
Yeah, I haven't. Well, since COVID, obviously, I haven't been over there since before then. But the plan is, if Pro Wine takes place next year, then I plan
Germany.
to be yeah.
Okay.
So and then I assume while I'm there, I'll try to get around the rest of Europe a little bit, just hopefully for some fun.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, do give me a call if you do come over on this side of the pond, as they say.
Yes, absolutely.
Meet you. Thank you very much. Then enjoy the rest of your day in sunny Florida. We're now about to have dinner in cold London, but we're happy anyway.
Stay inside. Thank you, Marco. Pleasure talking with you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye now.